Hello. Here I am, 3 minutes late. Apologies, I just burnt my finger. Hopefully that's not gonna be distracting. So today we are unpacking something that's actually my favorite subject. One of my friends and members of my audience, Christian, asked a really cool question. And he wanted to know more about the art of transmuting pain into power and how to accomplish psychologically in everyday life. Okay, so this automatically brings to mind the subject of alchemy. Because what is alchemy? Alchemy is about transmuting primal matter into a cause for enlightenment or enlightenment itself. So into something pure. So what is primal matter? Primal matter in alchemical texts has never been described like specifically what it is, but it has been referred to as the most impure, reviled substance that all humans, kind of hate or despise. So in the context of our, when we're talking about enlightenment, evolution, personal growth, then we can look at what is the primal matter in the context of our psychological stuff, as well as, things that impact us to have problematic psychological states. So then primal matter would be anything that we dislike about ourselves, anything, it could be illness, it could be, greed, ego grasping, just any kind of problematic arrogance and whatnot. And then externally speaking, our problem would very much fall under the category of primal matter. So in terms of Christian's question here, the art of transmuting pain into power, this is 100% alchemical concept, taking something painful and problematic and turning it into a fuel and into a cause for our growth, our enlightenment, our development. So let's see, how should we start? So first of all, we should first identify some of these things. So when we talk about problems, right? Problems don't exist out there inherently. It's not like I'm here minding my own business and then suddenly problem comes into my life and I'm like, oh, there is a problem out there. It's our response to circumstances that are happening in our life that creates the problem. So, something that's problem for one person isn't a problem for the other person. So, for instance, some difficult situation might cause one person to fall apart, and the other person might take that as an opportunity to learn and to grow, right? So we have one and the same problem, two different people looking at the same situation and having a completely different perception of it, and they're able to use that and to mold it into their outcome. One person molds it into, falling apart, the result that's like falling apart, the other person molds it into a result of growth. Now, what is it that causes us to see things as problematic or not? Or what is it that enables one person to be capable, of working with problems and another person, is kind of broken down by it? This is basically what karma is about. I'm actually creating a really big lecture on karma that I'm going to be putting up on YouTube. But karma is basically cause and effect. It's the result, like, I'll give you a very easy example. If I play piano, the result of that will be, if I practice piano daily, regularly, the result of that will be that I'm good at piano. It's just common sense, right? So what is the cause and effect of us thinking the way we do? Well, everything that we think, we say, and do create imprints in our mind, and basically create, so like if we're somebody who doesn't want to take responsibility for their own life, and if we tend to blame everybody else for our problems, or it's the world is this way, so, or my parents were this way, or, like taking everything else as a reason why you kind of failed to create something out of your life. Like it's not, and this is not a blaming game. It's not about guilting the victim or anything like that. I just want to put that out there because we're so insecure and reactive, and we just take anything, and we turn it into this like sort of, we see it as attack. So I would really like for you guys to take this information as sort of a tip, how to move forward, how to take what we have and transmute it into something better. So it's the fact of the matter that everything, all of our sort of, whatever we do inside of our mind results in how we see the world. So if we're constantly burdened by our circumstances, that means we need to change something inside of ourselves. And one thing that I see a lot is when we are faced with a problem, people keep reacting in the same way, responding in the same way to the problematic situation over and over again, expecting for things to suddenly shift. And that's not how things work. So first of all, I kind of created like a little outline of how you could change the way you're reacting to things. How do we change our behavior? So first of all, when a problem arises, stop labeling it as a problem. Start seeing it as an opportunity. That's kind of a first level, because the moment we change our attitude about the problem, that problem suddenly changes its power that it has over us. So it's actually, we give power to people and situations. We sort of, it's our interpretation and our attitude that gives power to these things, right? So the first level is change the attitude and stop reacting in the same way that you always react. So for a lot of people, something happens or something doesn't happen, they freak out, their sort of, reactive state comes on, the automatic consciousness kicks in, fight or flight. So we're like, and then all the thoughts start getting produced. And it's like, oh my God, this is happening again. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm no good. I'm crap. I can't do anything right. Like all of this stuff is like ego having a picnic, and for ego, it doesn't matter if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Any over-engagement and overindulgence in the narratives reify the ego. It makes ego feels sort of alive and real. And it's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit weird to say this right now because I don't want to get into this kind of, or maybe I will, I don't know, the concept of ego and the picture that ego has, the idea that we have about ourselves, like who am I? All of that is a projection. And who you are, how you see yourself and how somebody else sees you, nobody's going to see the same person. So then the question is like, who is this person inside? If like my mother sees me in a certain way and my friend sees me in another way and I see myself in another way, like who is valid in their perception? The really cosmic interpretation of that, or answer to that question, is that we are none of those narratives. All those things about all that information that comes out about ourselves is valid, but it's not the ultimate sort of identity that we cling to. It's not who I am in my essence. So like if I feel extra arrogant and I think I'm better than everybody else and I'm, that's false. That's just the narrative of the ego. If I think that I'm no good and I'm just like, I should go and hide and crawl under a rock, that either isn't who you are. That's just a narrative. And these narratives arise and go away in different situations. They are caused by specific things. They're caused by my mood, by my circumstances, by, you know, what other people say. We're so reactive to like other people's words and reactions to us, because we're just like waiting for somebody else to tell us who we are so that we can. So aspect of the spiritual work is to create a healthy ego. That means, you know, we're aware of our capacity. We know who we are and what we're capable of. And if there are things that we're not good at, we don't pick ourselves apart. It's okay, we're human. We're not supposed to have it all figured out. You know, this is a journey. This is why we're here. And this is why we have practice, spiritual practice that's slowly supposed to bring us there, right? Okay, so now let me go back. So all of these narratives that come up, you know, ego is invested in its narratives. Because ego believes what it believes, whether it's positive or negative, or rather, whether it's inflated or kind of pathetic and deflated. Both of those things are not essentially true, because it wouldn't make sense. You can't say I'm essentially confident person, because that means that I can never experience insecurity. And that's not the case. We keep changing moment to moment. We're like a river of mental moments. We're ever changing, right? So, okay, so we said that. Now, so when the problem arises, number one, and I'm going to put this under in comments so you guys have like a quick reference sheet of like strategy, what to do when problems come, right? How to change them. So first, changing attitude, you know, stop reacting. Of course, we can't just stop reacting. When we're stirred, the first thing we have to do, we have to calm the F down, okay? So when things become difficult and we're falling into this kind of fight or flight, and the heart is beating and the anxiety and like, and the voices, right? The first thing you do, you know, disengaging from the voices and just breathe. 10 to 30 slow, deep breaths. Like it's, you know, that's like the last thing we want to do when we're freaking out. But you have to do that to calm down, to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. Because when we're freaking out, we can't think clearly, like forget it. There is no access to solution mind. When we're freaking out, that's when we reach for quick fix, like drugs, alcohol, sex, food, you name it. You know, we all have some kind of thing that we grab onto like a crutch, but those things don't help. You know, it's like getting high isn't going to make your problem go away. You're just like actually making it worse, because you're priming yourself to reach for all the wrong things, you know. So then we calm down. And then once we calm down, then we start to think rationally. See, this is what separates us from animals. We have a capacity for rational thinking. It's mind-boggling today to me how little we think about things. We just don't think. You know, we're being so lazy. You know, we like read spiritual books, for example, or things like that, and we just take everything for granted. Like, oh, somebody said so, and that's why I accept it. It's like, that's not going to transform you. You have to take what you're reading and you have to think about it and be like, how is this so, or how is this not so? You know, we have intellect for a reason. We have to use it actively, break things down. I mean, that's kind of like what we do in therapy, right? We go to therapy and we like break things down. We try to assess the situation. We try to step out of our kind of perspective, because like when we're looking at a problem from within ourselves, it appears in a certain kind of way. It appears like really big and huge. But if you step out, like if you see somebody else having an issue, it's easier to see what's going on. But when you're in it, it's like you can't see anything, right? So we think rationally, we engage with our solution mind. How do we do this? You know, we kind of break things down into steps. It's like, this is my problem. We can look at what am I doing in my life to co-create this problem? And, you know, we already said a couple of things like reacting or, you know, all this kind of stuff. That's one level. But what am I doing to co-create the situation? If I keep falling into garbage relationships with garbage people, rest assured that not every person in your life is garbage, but like you kind of go into those relationships for a particular reason, so you have to, it's a little bit too much to break things down, but I'm just, kind of putting things in, like in a nutshell, right? Also, ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? Like, there is an aspect of myself that keeps recreating a problematic situation or puts me, in the harm's way. So try to engage with this aspect of yourself, like bring it out in your mind's eye, see, is this like part of your inner child or what is it? Give it a form, give it a name, and engage with it and like talk to it. I mean, I'm serious, I'm not joking. This stuff is really powerful. There are archetypes residing in our unconscious. They're completely autonomous. And I've done this work, so I know what I'm talking about. I'm not like pulling this out of my, it's a real thing. It's aspect of Jungian psychology. Tibetans have it. There is a Tibetan Buddhist practice, which I mentioned before, called feeding your demons, where you identify the problem, whether it's illness or a situation or whatever, aspect of yourself that you don't like. You pull it out, you give it form, and you engage with it in conversation, and you talk to it. It's like, what's that therapy where you imagine your family member in a chair? Your family member isn't there, but you imagine them sitting in a chair, and you have a conversation with them. And then you can even sit in the position of your, imaginary person and respond from that perspective. That's like in NLP, that's called changing your perceptual position. So you step into the aspect of yourself that's generating a problem, and you try to answer questions like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I hoping to accomplish by creating these circumstances over and over again? Because in reality, the reason these things happen, like one way to look at this that's very helpful and beneficial is to see problems as like, these are sort of keys that will lead me to real evolution and enlightenment. And if I keep responding to them in the same way, like not trying to look at them, not trying to deal with them, self-medicating, we're never going to transcend. The pattern will just keep repeating until we break through it. And we break through it by confronting the situation. So there was something I was going to say. Yes. So clearly, things that we have mastered in our life so far are not enough to deliver us into kind of state of enlightenment, right? So that means we have to look elsewhere. And where do we have to look? We have to look at aspects that are underdeveloped. So that means that the problems contain the key to those elements in ourselves that will kind of produce greater happiness and, help us fulfill our evolution. You see, we all have a potential. All of us. It just doesn't matter like where we are in life. We all have a very amazing potential. There are different spiritual traditions that talk about this, but Buddhism in particular is very specific about what this means. It's like we have a capacity to step into a place where we're so healed that we rid ourselves of any kind of suffering. Now, what does that mean? Suffering, there is a saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So as long as we're embodied, we're going to experience discomfort. We're going to, something's going to break down in the body. So we're going to feel pain. We're going to have emotional pain. Someone's going to die, whatever. These things are part of life. But suffering is like when we make, you take some kind of issue that comes into your life and you turn it into like a disaster by kind of going like, oh, why me? How could this happen? Then we fall into like the victimhood and it's like, it's not my fault. It's, it's like, and then like low self-esteem and then like conflict, all of this drama, all this stuff. This is basically this elaboration of our pain into this like overwhelming kind of, again, it's like ego indulging in reifying itself. This is what keeps us trapped, and we can overcome all of that, and we can become a person who is totally self-sufficient, meaning that like so full of just contentment, joy, balance, not depending on anybody outside to do or say something for me to, find happiness and fulfillment. So that's why the first level on the kind of ladder of transcendence is creating a healthy ego, stopping all of these like things that we create that are problematic, that make our life unbearable and difficult. Again, problem is not out there, it's always in here, and therefore the solution is always in here, and there is no other way. Like, the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can do what we need to do to actually change things. Now, okay, now here we get to an interesting part. So, with alchemy, let's step back for a second. So alchemy, the tradition of alchemy, medieval alchemy, it started a very long time ago. There is a wonderful book by a scholar, Mircea Eliade, who wrote about origins and structures of alchemy. I actually have an upcoming lecture on this that I wrote in August of 2022, and I still didn't put it up, but I'm going to record it and post it up soon. So alchemy, the medieval alchemy kind of branched into Eastern and Western. So we have from here we have Western alchemy that's practiced and perpetuated through Western Hermetic tradition. And then we have Eastern branch of alchemy, which is Tantra or Buddhist Vajrayana. Well, Buddhist Vajrayana, Indian Tantra, and Chinese alchemy. Just want to mention that there is this like grave misconception that Tantra is about sex. It is not. I'm not gonna get into that right now fully, but it's a really kind of a problematic misconception, because Tantra is about full transcendence. It's going beyond, going beyond desire, going beyond greed. Like, Tantra is about transmuting poison into medicine. That's one way of putting it. And again, it comes from alchemical tradition, turning prima materia into gold. So when it comes to sexual aspect of that, it's not about having sex, because sex comes from this like inner sort of hunger, and it's an impulse for pleasure, basically. And Tantra is about transcending pleasure. And Tantra is about actually using desire to transcend desire, using greed, using fear, using anger to transcend all of those things, to become free. So, and by the way, sexual aspect of Tantra, aspect where we're transmuting sexual energy, is way advanced. Unless you work with the subtle body and you can move the energy through your central channel, you're not practicing Tantra. Sorry to burst your bubble, right? So it's really important to know what things are, because there is a lot of misconceptions floating around, and there is plenty of resources out there where you can read the genuine stuff and really understand it. Like, things have to make sense. Like, if Tantra is about sex, we would all be enlightened. Nobody would, have any problems. We wouldn't have wars. We wouldn't have. So clearly something's fishy, right? Also, the Dalai Lama is a tantric master. How can he be a tantric master if Tantra is about sex when he's a monk? So there are like a lot of things that don't make sense, right? So be careful who you study from. Okay, so how do we, so now we're going back to Christian's question. Turning pain into power. Pain, anger, fear, any kind of problem, all of these things, like when our mind encounters something that's like a trigger, it produces either extreme hatred. I mean, hatred is a heavy word, but it produces aversion, meaning I don't want this, I want to avoid this, get it away from me, or extreme desire, right? And both of those, and And desire, the kind of narrative of desire is like, I must have this, I must have it. It's this kind of grasping. And then when you don't have it, you get angry or you get sad and like you fall apart, right? So this is, wait, I'm losing my train of thought. So, so the first level of transmuting pain into power, for example, is to strip the state of the narrative. So when we are in a heightened state, upon meeting a problem, when we are in a heightened state, triggered state, right? And it's the ego is producing like chatter, like, oh, why me? Who is this? Oh, how dare you? Blah, 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 all this stuff. You strip that. You take it all away. You stop focusing on like the conceptual thought. What you're left with is pure energy. Think about stories of like, I hear this so many times, like if in some situation like mother and a child, like let's say car accident, and the car flips, and then the mother in that moment, out of love, right, and out of fear for her child, she gets this like crazy like superhero strength and like lifts the car to like, you've heard stories like this, right? They're like, this is a really good example that like powerful states are extremely energetic. They're like high level of energy. It's fuel. With that energy, then, if you use that energy to put it back into yourself to perpetuate delusions, and to perpetuate kind of ego's narrative, you feed all of that stuff. And so magically speaking, like you're creating a cause to really be stuck. But if you take that energy and you use it for something positive, for something constructive, well, then that's Tantra, that's transmutation of the prima materia. Like that's, So how can you do that? Well, for those of us who are, say, practitioners, who are, any kind of practice, I mean, you can be a tantric practitioner where you have sadhanas, you have a specific practice where you learn to identify with an enlightened manifestation of a Buddha, for example. So like that beautiful lion-faced dakini behind me is a manifestation of Buddha's qualities. She is a tantric deity. She is an archetype, a representation of our potential. All of us have this potential. And what is she doing? She's dancing, she's got certain implements, it's all symbolic. But one thing I want to bring to your attention, and I'm going to bring her closer. By the way, this beautiful tanka comes to us from an account called Lama Tanka. I'm going to add them there. But this is so gorgeous. So as you can see, she's holding a skull cup that's filled with blood and like gross things, right? So, in Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there is this concept of like, you use skull cup, meaning cup that's made of a dead man's skull, like something revolting. Again, we're going to the things that are revolting that we don't like. So you take that cup and you fill it with the most disgusting stuff. You fill it with excrement and urine and like brains and all kinds of nasty flesh. And then in the sadhana, you transmute that because no problem has an inherent quality of being a problem. Your mind makes it a problem. The way you react to it is what determines is it a problem or it's not a problem. In the same way, all of this stuff doesn't have, I mean, this is like a little higher level stuff, but it doesn't have inherent existence. So like you turn it into nectar and you offer it to the Buddhas. And you also, as a kind of somebody who identifies with the Buddha, you can partake of that stuff. So what is this? This is kind of metaphorical, this is a visualization within like a tantric sadhana. It's one of them. And what it does is that it primes the mind to start looking at unappealing things as potentials. And what she's doing is, actually there is another one, Vajrayogini, she drinks, blood and whatnot from a skull cup. And when you assume the form of the deity doing that, what you're doing is you're imprinting into yourself this concept that like whatever is in that cup is a symbol for anything that that a normal person would want to go away with. Problems, insults, people accusing you wrongly of something, like all the really difficult things. And what you do as a tantric deity and a practitioner, you go, give me more, yeah, give me more of that. Because why? This is the material that you use to transmute your ego. This is gold, okay? This is what we need to grow. Now, this is an advanced practice. We can't just wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm going to just invite problems into my life. And then problems arise, and then our habitual way, of reacting to things is like, and then we freak out. It takes time to develop the right attitude. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of imprinting to change our habitual way of responding to situations. And the next time, eventually, there comes a day when somebody is coming at you and like freaking out at you, and they're spitting in your face while they're talking, the eyes are red, and you can stand there with understanding that, for example, this person is having their own experience, their own anger. It has nothing to do with you. So you don't have to get engaged, you don't have to get involved. And it's a wonderful feeling when you can do that. So on the first level, you simply start by not responding to that. You might still feel upset. You might still feel like, oh, this is pretty intense. But over time, doing this work that I, share on my page constantly, you will get to a point, and believe me, it works. I mean, I used to be a much more afflicted person than I am today, because these things work. So I'm speaking from experience. I'm not enlightened or anything like that, but I have come to be much more integrated as a person, much more self-sufficient. Like somebody out there telling me that I'm whatever, X, Y, and Z is not going to ruin my day. Not anymore. And these things, so again, sorry, Christian, I am going on a tangent. And how long has it been? Oh, it hasn't been that long, like 15 minutes? No, it's been 35 minutes. Wow. Time flies when you're like, okay, so transmuting pain into power. So that's one way. You feel the pain. You feel whatever is happening. You hear your mind, blah, blah, blah. Go away with the narrative. Stop listening to the brain, to the ego talking. Feel everything you're feeling, and this takes practice. And where do we develop this capacity? In meditation. In meditation, you learn every single day, preferably at the same time, you sit and you do your practice. And you start with whatever. Start with 5 minutes, and then over time, you make it 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever, right? And when you do that, when you show up, there's going to be days, definitely there are going to be days where like the last thing you want to do is do your meditation. Or like stuff is happening and it's like the last thing you want to do is sit in full awareness of like the storm that's happening inside of you. But if you start with baby steps and you increase them, your capacity to withstand discomfort is going to grow, right? So, as you're developing that capacity, right, then when stuff comes up, you can like sit with it, you can breathe through it, take the narrative, and then the raw energy that you have left, you do something with it. Whether it's like, on the most basic level, if it's something that is difficult for you to contain, you can just go and like work out. Make your body stronger. By the way, physical exercise, for me personally, I find that physical exercise is hugely important in helping us grow mentally, because body and mind are intimately connected. And doing something that requires us to exert force and to go against our weakness, our laziness, our it's basically training. So you're training yourself to kind of work with that. You're becoming stronger. You're, not just in your body, in your mind. That's why it's really, really helpful. Okay, now, another thing you can do, other than exercise, is you can actually go and do the thing that's required to solve that problem. So it's like, whatever your problem is, you can analyze, you can kind of sit down, if you don't know how to do it, you can hire somebody to help you. You don't have to have a coach, or a therapist, like whatever. You can hire somebody for a couple of sessions. It's not that much money. Like, we're always like, when it comes to spending money on something that's for our mind and our soul, we're like, oh, I don't have money for that. And then we go and over the weekend spend like $300 on like booze or whatever. It's just nonsense, So like investing in ourselves in a way that will actually help us, and so that's one way, and also he also asks how to accomplish psychologically in everyday life. It's also part of transmutation. Like I said, is there are levels at which we're capable of transmuting problems into opportunities. So before, and in a way, this process of transmuting problems into opportunities, transmuting heavy duty caca and primal matter into like enlightened potential, that capacity changes over time, so we can be more and more capable, and it leads to transcendence. That's ultimately where it takes us. It takes us beyond our kind of ordinary human way of operating. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to create a healthy ego. Meaning, are you somebody who beats yourself up, who can't accept criticism of any kind, constructive criticism, who is like super defensive the moment anybody comes to like say something, or you're like, like that's not good, okay? I understand, this is like another thing. People are like, I have a right to be mad. Oh, it's like, yeah, you have a right to be mad, but what's that gonna give you in life? Like, what, you can be mad until the cows come home, but you're still gonna be stuck with the problem. Like, if you're just blaming on somebody else, like, it's not helpful. Like, we're not helping ourselves. We gotta like step in and, confront these things. I mean, I used to see a therapist, and like, she was very confrontational. This is how it should be. People need to put stuff in our face, and we need to be willing to look at it. And of course, the first reaction is always like, it's always like, anger. Like for me, I felt like I wanted to punch her in the face, because she poked the right place, and the ego doesn't like to be poked. And when people poke and we know it's true, but we don't like it, we get angry. But then with me, it's like, 30 minutes later or the next day, I'm like, oh, she's right. She's right. And then you go back, like if you can't control that first reaction, that's fine. It just happens to us all. But then you go back and you think about it. It's like, is it really true? So how do you do this? If you don't have a therapist or whatever, you could still do this. There is, you can just Google online how to do shadow work. Shadow work, this terminology has been like really dragged out, but it's a really, every other person is like shadow work, but it's actually, and it kind of lost its value because of that, because a lot of people even talk about it without truly realizing what it means. Shadow is really about, contents of our mind that are problematic or traumatized or painful or whatever, that we suppressed into unconscious, and we don't want to see them. However, they still exert influence on our perception, actions, all this stuff. So what we do, one way you can catch your shadow is if you see somebody doing things, and you're like, oh, look at that person, like they're, and then like criticizing. By the way, I still do a little bit of that, and then I'm like, oh God, I fell into the trap. It's okay, we just get back on the horse and keep trying. Like, you gotta keep doing the work. So when we do this, guess what's happening? You point one finger at somebody else, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. So why are we fixating on what somebody does and how they do it? Because what we see reminds us of our own stuff that we're not willing to acknowledge and see. So when we see it in somebody else, it's like the most, it makes you want to vomit. Like, it's just revolting, okay? So that's what's happening. And I mean, it's not as simple as it sounds. And it doesn't mean that, if somebody's doing something out there, and we say like, oh, it's your projection, you are interpreting things from the place of your shadow or whatever, that person still might be doing something wrong. That's not to say that like what you're seeing isn't true. However, it shows that, why are you reacting to it in the way that you do? Why are you losing peace over somebody else's mistake? There's literally no benefit in that. Stress is like a major underlying cause for so many diseases. Like, is it really helpful for you to like, and furthermore, by doing that, you step away from yourself. So instead of because everybody's our mirror, the whole world is our mirror. What we see is always kind of like a reflection on a certain level. So if we use that situation, that problematic situation, to teach us something about ourselves, then you take that annoying person with annoying tendencies and all this stuff, then you use that as a stepping stone. Wow, my ear. You use that as a stepping stone to your growth. And what happens when you work through that, when you see that person doing that again, you're not going to get angry. What you're going to feel is like compassion. That's automatic. You're going to be like, wow, I know what this person is going through. I get it. I've been there. It's not good. It's not pleasant. And that's how you start to transform your perception. When you work through all of your stuff, you will never be triggered by what other people do. And you're going to know exactly how to help them. And if you can't help them, at least you're not going to harm them by engaging in some toxic, situation. And there was something else I wanted to say, but of course I can't now remember. Yeah, so art of transmutation is not easy, but it's 100% doable. And this is where I'm going to, I created a course that combines all of these things. You will see it. It's on my page. It's the first post. It's pinned. I hate being like, oh, buy my course. Like, my course is really, it's everything I practiced and studied for the past 20 years, and I put it in there. But, for those who don't want to buy it, can look at my stuff online. You can get still a lot out of it. I also have a YouTube channel. You can always text me. I'm happy to help when I can. I don't have unlimited time, but, and I think I'll be having Patreon coming up soon. But it's like, for crying out loud, do something, don't just sit there and be burdened by your life. Like, confront it, work through it, and ask for help. Now, let me see if there is anything. I think I could like stop here. Yeah, I think that's it, And again, if you guys want to like if you want to learn, if you want to enter spiritual traditions that are alchemical in nature, you can start with, there are many, there is a Western and Eastern traditions that use this sort of technology. But anyway, you can text me and I can, depending on like what kinds of things you're into, I can maybe offer some advice or guidance. Because I'm in both. I'm traveling in both worlds. Because it's practically, in the end, essentially, it's the same kind of work, just with slightly different flavors. Okay, I will stop here. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great Sunday. Sending love to all of you. And don't shy away from problems. And, have some self-compassion so that you can confront your problems without beating yourself up, without destroying yourself, with. All right. Hopefully, what country I'm in? I am in New York City, Zoo York City. I'm originally from Belgrade, Serbia. That's my ego's narrative. I'm half Serbian, half Croatian, actually. And I came to New York 24 years ago. To US. In New York, I was about 20 years. Let's see. I'm just going to quickly see if there are any questions that I can just answer on the spot. Again, thank you all for, being here. I really hope this stuff is helpful. You're taking shots at me like it's Patron, and I'm just like, damn it, it's 7 a.m. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry I'm doing this. I just want to see if there are any questions. Okay, that's it. No questions. All right. Mwah. Thank you, guys. Please send me your questions. As a content creator, it's super helpful for me to like get some stuff, because then I can make things that are useful to you. And you know, I'm here because on one hand, obviously I have my I have a goal of turning content creation into a full-time job, something that will offer me ability to, a livelihood, right? I do other things in life, but I'd like to shift to this full-time. But on another hand, it's really important for me as I go through life learning, and, I want to share these things because it helped me, and I don't want to see people suffer, and we're all interconnected and we got to help each other. So like, it's important for me that I can be helpful, it's good. It's empowering. So I need you guys. Okay. Much love. Bye.